Hello, my name's Sean. Today I'll be teaching you how to make a very simple beer. This won't be the best beer by any means, but it teaches you the basic techniques and it also shows you how easy it is to make beer. Later on I will put out a video which teaches you how to make much better beers using grains. This one's just going to be a very simple one, very easy to make, very cheap to make, and does everything a beer should.
Right, what do you need to make beer? The first thing is spray malt, or some form of a malted barley. That's what we're going to use for this recipe. The second thing is hops, yeast, something to brew it in, which I've used a demijohn, and something called an airlock, which just stops air getting in but lets air escape to stop it going bang. Stopper's helpful. Something to bottle it in, some empty ale bottles, and caps for the ale bottles, and you'll need some sort of crown capper. You can use screw top bottles if you can get hold of those instead. All of this is available from Wilkinsons. It's the cheapest place for it, apart from the hops. The hops I wasn't able to get from Wilkinsons. I went to the local brew shop for that, and the place I've used is the homebrew shop, and I'll put a link to it on the website. But everything else relatively cheap. This spray malt is on a special at the moment. It's £3.20 a bag, and that's enough to make about 8 pints of beer. The caps are about 50 pence for 80. Sorry, 80 pence for 50 even. The yeast is about 80 pence per packet, which will do 2 or 3 batches. The hops are about £3 or £4. I'm not entirely sure exactly how much they cost, but they weren't expensive, and they'll do 4 or 5 batches that amount. The demijohn, which is in use at the moment, as you can see, that cost about £7, but they are on special sometimes. Sometimes I think about £6 at the moment. Stopper about 50 pence, and the airlocks, I think it was a bag of 2 for £2. Other things you'll need are a big saucepan. This one's a 3 litre saucepan. Big funnel, any funnel will do, something that's easily cleanable, and a big spoon for stirring things.
Let's talk about sanitization. Sanitization is really important when you're making beer or any type of alcohol. There's lots of natural bugs and bacteria and yeast and things just floating about in the air that we're in. When I talk about sanitization, I'm not talking about just washing things, which is also important. You need to make sure that all of your equipment is nice and clean anyway, it's been washed up, and then it's also been sanitized. Sanitizing is quite easy to do. You can get various sanitizing solutions or powders from Wilkinsons for one. They sell something called Brew Clean for about £1 for a jar of it. You can also use very weak bleach solutions. I've been told 1 tablespoon per gallon of bleach will do the job. It's very important to sanitise your equipment for long enough. They suggest, if you're sanitising with bleach, to sanitise your equipment for half an hour in that bleach solution. Make sure you rinse it out as well, that's also very important. The reason we sanitise it, these bugs, they won't necessarily make you ill, but they might make you ill. The most important thing is it will make your beer taste bad. So, bad tummy, not good, but beer tasting bad, even worse.
First stage is to boil 2 litres of water. 2 litres is about half the amount of beer that you're going to be making. So what we're going to do, we're going to make up quite a strong solution of beer, and then we'll dilute it when it gets into the brewing vessel. So when that's boiled, the next thing that we're going to add is the spray malt, and I'm using light spray malt, but any spray malt will do, but for light spray malt you'll have quite a light beer in colour and in flavour. And I'm using these German hops. They were just the cheapest hops I could find, but if you are a connoisseur you can get which ones you want. This whole packet of spray malt is going in. That's 500 grams or 1.1 pound, and also we're going to have half an ounce, in fact slightly more, probably about 18 grams of hops are going in, and they're going to go in 2 batches. The first batch is going to be about 15 grams, and then the last 3 grams will be put in later on. The water's nearly boiling, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the spray malt. I'm going to add the whole bag. It's a 500 gram bag. Add it quite slowly and stir it as you add. What you'll find is that it will get quite lumpy in there. You stir out the lumps and keep stirring it until the lumps are out. It will smell quite a lot like Horlicks or Ovaltine. In fact, this is quite similar. This is one of the major ingredients. It's got a malty flavour and smell. Just to let you know, I have washed my hands. Another very important thing to do. This is food. Be as hygienic as you normally would when you cook. As you can see now, I've stirred all the lumps out, and we're just left with something slightly foamy, and smells lovely. Obviously you can't smell it, but nice sort of this spray malt solution is what's going to provide the sugar for the brewing, for the fermentation, and it's also going to provide quite a lot of the flavour to the beer, so it will give you that malty taste, and the sugar will then be fermented, and a good proportion of it hopefully turning into alcohol. Right, you can see this is now boiling. I'm just going to turn the heat down a little bit just so it doesn't boil over, and I'm going to add the hops. I've already weighed the hops, as I said, about 18 grams of hops. I'm just going to add the first 15. These are pelleted hops, which means you can use slightly less of them. Very convenient to use. Like with your coffee, best way to store fresh coffee is in the fridge, so any leftover, pop in an airtight container and pop in the fridge. Now, what you do now is turn the heat right down, so it's still boiling but isn't boiling over. Pop a lid on it and leave it for 1 hour. We're now down to the last few minutes of the boil. You can see it's still boiling away. You can see the hops boiling in there. It's changed colour a little bit. Last 5 minutes, I'm just going to add the last few hops and finish that off. What I'm going to have ready when it finishes is the demijohn with a litre of water in it, cold water, not too cold, just sort of around room temperature. This is so that we can add the hot liquid to it without causing the demijohn to shatter. So what I've got here is my brewing vessel, or demijohn, and as I said earlier, that's got a litre of water in it, and this is just to stop any thermal shock and stop the glass cracking when I pour the liquor, or the wort as it's called, or wort, that's it, it's wort, isn't it, into the brewing vessel. I've also got quite a large funnel on top, and also a sieve on top of that to remove the hops or any other solids that are in there. You can put a muslin in there as well if necessary, but I don't mind the odd little bit in my beer. Right, what I'm going to do now is pour the hot wort into the demijohn. Hopefully this one will topple over. This is very hot, so you need to watch out and make sure that the wort is actually going into the water, not onto the glass, just to make sure you're not going to crack the glass. That's it. That's in there. Your next job will be to top it up to about that level, just on the neck, with water. The reason you don't go any higher than that is because when it starts fermenting you will get foam, and if you have it too high the foam will go over the airlock and it will bubble through and it will make a terrible mess. I've added the water just up to that level. We need to wait for this to get down to about room temperature now. I feel at the moment it's still quite warm. If I added the yeast to that now, the yeast would just, quite a lot of it would probably die. So we get the temperature down to about room temperature. In order to protect it from getting anything coming in, I pop the airlock on top. When it gets to room temperature, add a teaspoon of yeast, pop the airlock back on top, and then forget about it for about a week. And you'll see it will be fermenting. when it stops fermenting, you're ready to start bottling, and we'll show you that in a minute. When fermentation's established itself, you should see maybe a foam on top. Most importantly, you can see bubbles going through the airlock. Can you see the bubble just bubbling through now? This means that it's actually fermenting. As you can see, no air is going through this airlock, and the foam that was on top of the beer has subsided, which makes me think that the fermentation has finished. A way to confirm this is to get a hydrometer and take a reading a couple of days in a row. I do have a hydrometer, but I won't be doing that today, and that might be something I'll show you on a future video. But as I said, primary fermentation is finished, so the next thing we need to do is to bottle this beer.
Bottling the beer isn't just as easy as popping it in a bottle and putting a cap on it. What we need to do is do a process called secondary fermentation. What this does is adds a little bit more carbon dioxide to the mix and makes the beer sparkling. So at the moment there's no fizz to the beer, it's just very flat, tastes alright, but won't give you a head or anything when you pour it, and it's not sort of very beer-like. So what we do is we prime it. The best thing to prime it with is the malt that you've used, the same type of malt. As I don't have any of that left because I added the whole packet, what I'll be doing is adding sugar to water. You need to add half a cup, and these are the American type cups of water to 1/8 of a cup of sugar. This needs to be boiled for a couple of minutes, and I'm just going to be doing that in the microwave in a pint glass, and this just sterilises it and stops any bacteria from getting into it. What we'll then be doing is dividing the beer into a jug, adding the solution, mixing it all up, and putting it into bottles and sealing the bottles. Right, what I'm going to be doing is siphoning the beer from here, just the brewing vessel, into the jug. This siphoning tube has already been sanitised, and I've filled it with fresh water so that I don't have to put my lips around there. What I'm going to do first though is add half of the sugar water, which is what will give the beer its carbon dioxide and its fizz. So about half. Then what I'll be doing, would usually give that a little moment to cool down, but I'm just doing this quickly for you. Pop this in. The water running out, just run that into a different vessel, another pint glass. And as soon as you start getting beer through, it's nice, put it into this jug. We're going to be doing this in 2 batches, which is why I've divided the sugar solution by half. So fill this up to around 2 litres, which will fill 4 bottles. Try your best to not disturb it too much, because air getting into the beer also gets microbes in and can ruin the flavour. The next part is simply to put the beer that's in the jug into the bottle. It will foam if you don't do it carefully, so I suggest doing it on the side and doing it very slowly. What you want to do is leave about 1 inch at the top of the bottle, and what this does, this allows the gas to build up and make the beer nice and fizzy. And then seal the bottle with a crown capper.
crown cap here. Or if you've got screw tops, screw the top on your beer. That now needs to go away for at least 7 days for secondary fermentation to be completed. What you should find is that you'll get some yeast at the bottom of the bottle, which is perfectly normal and can't be avoided in most home brewing, and the top should look like beer. A word of warning, when you do drink this, make sure you refrigerate it. The first time I opened one of these, it went everywhere. Tasted good, but went absolutely everywhere. So, at the end of this process, you get beer. Please mind the label, I just left it on there. As I say, I recommend you pop it in the fridge before you open it, otherwise it can be a bit lively. There we are. Not a great head on this one, but let's see how it tastes. Tastes very beery. Anyway, good luck, and thank you for watching.